What? Why is my screen frozen? Now that's weird. Okay, let's try that again. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me at Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. Sorry for my frozen screen, but this is what happens with these live streams. The concept of the show is to bring in an artist each episode and have a conversation with the artist about a performance we'll all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I encourage all of you to comment and ask questions to the artist. Don't be shy, even if it's a quick hello. We'd love for you to participate. The idea of doing the show came about when COVID-19 hit, and I wanted a platform to keep the music going for our fans. Even though we may not be able to experience live performances together right now, I wanted a place where music lovers can join easily to converse with the artists and to see more of a personal side of us. Music Today is a bilingual show. The live streams during your evening is in English, and the live streams during your morning time is usually in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve on your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch the Japanese interviews too. After the live stream, you could click on the supertitle button here, and you can listen in Japanese and read it in English. It's translated automatically by YouTube, so the quality is okay. Today is show number 82. I've been doing this almost every day since May. I'm very excited about it. And there has been an article on Arizona Daily Star about Music Today, so yay. I'll post a link on the YouTube comments so you can check out the article about this program. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guest for tonight. Since we on this side cannot hear your applause, please do me a huge favor and use the comment screen on the bottom to type clap, 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 or you can write clapping, type in clapping emojis so that we know that you are there and you're excited about it. Please welcome the one and only composer, John Mackey.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, John.
Hello. You can hear me okay?
Very well. How are you?
I'm
great.
I'm good. Well, here it's 6 p.m., so I'm finishing my post-dinner margarita. What time is it where you are right now?
It is 10 a.m., so I could be finishing my post-breakfast margarita, but I just didn't bring it on the show.
Excellent.
I could. You know, it's actually funny that you mentioned that because in Japan, there's a weird culture of Japanese men eating breakfast and drinking beer.
Huh.
Like, that's totally a thing.
Wow. You know, I loved Japan before, but I didn't know about that until just now. So it just got even cooler.
Yeah. Next time you visit Japan, we can drink beer while eating breakfast. I can't promise you the productivity will be great after that, but.
Well, just the idea of visiting Japan at all, ever again, is incredibly appealing to me. So, yeah.
Well, we'll try to make that happen. So for our viewers, I want to share how John and I know each other, and we met by coincidence. This is a photo of us when we first met back in 2018, and I was conducting.
I had gotten a haircut at that point. Look at my haircut. Look at that. Those were good times, haircuts.
Indeed, and this was in Fort Worth, Texas. I was conducting Fort Worth Symphony, and it was really a surprising thing for me because I was just, you're doing my usual routine of guest conducting, and I walk into the hotel, and then there's some kind of conference like every hotel has, and I was looking at what the conference was, and it said it's something about bandmasters, something. I can't remember the official title, and I was just kind of peeking through.
That's what they call it, the something bandmasters, I think.
Yeah. This is the orchestral opera guy saying about wind. Even though I'm a wind ensemble person, but I didn't know about the organization. So I'm looking at the guest list, and I see Frank DeKelly, who I've always wanted to meet, Jerry Junkin, who I've always wanted to meet, and Michael Doherty, and John Mackey, who's like, I wanted to meet all these guys, and I just took that opportunity to find you guys on Facebook, and I'm like, I'm a conductor, I love your music, can we meet? And this is the result of that.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, good times. I was very, very lucky to spend time with both of you and all the others, conductors and composers that were there. So good times. Thanks all for commenting. Wash hands. Yes, wash hands. That's for sure. Yeah. Most definitely. Wash hands and wear masks. Masks are important, and we'll probably get to that eventually.
Yes, they are important. I bet if you were to go outside, right? Where in Japan are you?
Tokyo.
Oh. So I bet is everybody still wearing masks all the time?
Yes, and then different orchestras are creating their own masks. So this one I got is from Yomiuri Nippon Symphony Orchestra. It's with their color design. Wow. So every orchestra is giving out their own orchestra's masks to the audience, because we now have audience in the concert hall, so that they can promote their orchestra. People can wear masks and promote their orchestras, their fans. So it's really cool. This one's really good, durable, washable, and easy to breathe. So anyways, we'll get to masks later. Let's talk about Let Me Be Frank with You. Tell us about this music.
Yeah, so this is my newest thing that several composers, and I'm part of an organization or a group called Creative Repertoire Initiative. And the thinking was that we're gonna, we didn't know what ensembles were going to be at all. And still, I don't think anyone knows what ensembles are really going to be this fall, in the States at least. And so the idea was to try to create repertoire that would be, adaptable instrumentation. So, in some parts of the world or the country, it's sort of referred to as flex ensemble. And this is that kind of approach. There are several different levels of adaptability that various composers are taking. Some are like maximum flex, where or maximum adaptability, where basically any three instruments of any kind could, if you get them in a room, any three people could play one of these pieces. Where it doesn't matter what it could be three flutes, it could be three trombones, it could be a piccolo and a euphonium and a tuba or whatever, and it would not matter. The piece would still, in theory, work well-ish with depending no matter what's playing it. So there's that's the maximum way of doing that. Mine is the way I've approached Let Me Be Frank with You, which is an original piece that I did just for this purpose. It's 4 parts plus percussion. And the 4 parts are basically treated as like SATB. So you really need, something to play, in the soprano register, alto, tenor, and a bass instrument, because if you don't have a bass instrument, you wouldn't be able to play basically the roots of the chords. And for the percussion, I've written it as it could work with a single player with just drum set, or you could split it out and you could have, someone play the bass drum part, or someone play the snare drum part, someone play, we'll offer mallet parts as well. And then for the soprano part, that, the part 1, I call it, there's a C version, so flutes could play it, oboe. There's a B flat version of the part that comes along with it, E flat. So you could have the top line played by just like E flat clarinet, which I hope you don't, but you could do that. And that would,
you can. Yeah. No one's stopping you from that.
Exactly. Yeah. Soprano saxophone, so, and then I do this for basically every instrument has its own, the parts include a whole lot of parts, but really only 4 parts of music.
I see.
And, so what you'll see here, this is the YouTube video of just the MIDI demo, because no one's played this in any version at this point. So it's like a MIDI realization. But
so you have part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, basically.
Yeah, and so the score that you get if someone gets one of these pieces is, it doesn't look like this at all. It's not what you receive. You receive what looks like a standard score, where you'll see part 1, and there will be 4 different transpositions for part 1, and then part 2 below it, and the transpositions that could play that part through the ensemble, and then the drum set part, and the percussion actually looks the same in the final version of it. It's called Let Me Be Frank with You because when I was writing it, Frank Kelly was one of the people who spearheaded this whole project, and I started writing this piece, and it sounds like a big old Frank Kelly ripoff, to the point that I emailed him and said, I think you wrote this. I think this is your music. Did you write this already? And he was very gracious. Frank is always very gracious. And he wrote back and he said, I did not write that. I think I could have written that, but I did not write that. So that one's all yours. So yeah, it's very, very Kelly. And unlike most of my music, like for anyone who knows my music, usually there are a lot of meter changes and things. This is approached to try to make it like maybe a grade 3.5 or so in the States. So it's just in 4/4. There is not a single meter change in the whole thing. Everything stays within pretty conservative ranges because, again, we don't really know what's going to be playing what parts. So I've done this one. Pat Dunnigan, director of bands at Florida State University, did a version of my piece Sheltering Sky for adaptable instrumentation, and he's doing a version of This Cruel Moon also, just to try to have some kind of rep that people can do. And that's what I'm doing, but there are a lot of us working on various new pieces as well as just adapted existing pieces to just try to have options for people, whatever the instrumentation ends up being, once ensembles hopefully happen in some degree this fall. But, as we get closer and closer to the start of school, it's unclear if there's going to be, I don't want to be a pessimist, but it's scary here. In the States, it's going really right. So there's just no telling what will end up happening with that.
And this could also be performed remotely too, right? If it was,
I suppose you could. I suppose, yeah. So Brian Balmages, who is also one of the members of CRI, the other day he sent me a text message and he said you should just offer just the bass part and the percussion as a standalone track that people can play along with. So then you can have three people in the room and still play the piece, or I could because it's all on MIDI, I could separate out just the percussion and offer just the percussion. People could record themselves playing along with any of the 4 parts with listening to the percussion track. That would work as well. So, and that's, we're all just kind of trying to do anything we can to be useful. And that was I was so relieved when they asked me to be part of, CRI because, going into the start of lockdown here in the States, and I live in San Francisco, and, we locked down pretty nearly first. There were some things shut down in, Washington, but then, San Francisco was pretty early to it. So all my trips, like everybody, all my trips were canceled for March and onward. And, commission, as I was going to be writing a piece to premiere. For me. Exactly. And I was just like writer's blocked on that. So I just couldn't, when everything shut down, I got really, really depressed. And I think a lot of people did because, if you're, an artist or composer or performer or teacher or, anything where your work is so dependent on interacting with other people and your work is your identity. And now it's gone. So the things that make you feel like you are just no longer in existence. So I just felt like, well, if I can't travel, I can't, if I'm going to write music that no one's going to be able to play because everything's going to get shut down, what do I have? Like, what am I doing? And I was just kind of lost for over a month, I think, and just played Animal Crossing all the time. That was literally all I was doing, which was lovely. But, I would basically run and play Animal Crossing. That was my day. And then eventually I was asked to be part of CRI, and it was just exciting to feel like there was something I could do that was potentially useful again, and give me an opportunity to write something that, may get played in. It's going to sound, if these pieces happen, they'll sound completely differently every time anyone plays them because you never know what's playing what part 3 or 4, any of them.
Exactly. And then what a great list of composers and collaborators in here of music compositions of various types. Like you all have very, very signature sound.
And
so it's really awesome here.
Alex Shapiro has done some stuff with electronics, the way she's approaching it. Frank has made some new things and also done just incredibly adaptable versions of some existing pieces. Omar Thomas is an incredibly exciting voice here in the United States. In particular, I don't know if he's gotten played much in Japan yet, but he's kind of the hottest composer in the wind band medium in the United States right now. And he's written a piece called Sharp 9 that teaches young players about improvisation. And there are things in the piece where, they'll take solos, and he writes out what they can play if they don't have any clue how to start. But then the idea is, and he gives teaching tools in the score of how you improvise in, whatever your given chord is and things. It's really, really cool. And so everyone's doing a different sort of a thing, and we're sort of, hey, it's Jason Noble.
Hi, Jason.
And yeah, so it's been. I guess I'm really glad to contribute to, and I just hope that it can be useful in some way for some people.
And for those who are watching on the YouTube comments, I have put the URL for John, So Let Me Be Frank, how to get that music, and also the URL for the Creative Repertoire, which is creativerepertoire.com. So go check that out. This is really a great initiative, and then what a positive way of coming out of this COVID-19, which it's all very depressing, but we have to keep the music going, and this is one great way of doing that.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, but again, at some point, I would like to hear about how you are rehearsing in Japan. Like, how did that, when you first got back to rehearse again, what was that like? Like, how long did you go without any where there was no allowed?
Sure. Sure. So the first week of March, I came back to Japan for a week in the second week of March to do a concert. And then I was going to go back home. My wife and I were going to fly back home. We live in Florida and Tampa and also in Savannah, Georgia. And we were about to fly back. And then that's when Trump did the flight reduction. It was that weekend where it felt like everyone was at the airport back in March.
Yeah,
that weekend. And and I thought, well, my wife and I were like, there's no way we're going to go to the airport. We're still going to catch the virus. So we didn't take that flight back to the US, and then flights were gone. It just started back up because the emergency status in Japan has been lifted about 4 weeks ago. So there's like a flight a week, maybe less, maybe a little bit more than that. But anyways, we haven't been able to go back yet. And since the emergency has been lifted, concerts have been back up. And the way Japan has been doing it is making sure that the numbers are steadied. It's low. It's right now, the entire country is at like 200, averaging 200 a day, which is really good. But it's also, you're talking about a country which is a complete germaphobe country. People have been wearing masks since the 1940s. If you have a little sneeze, people wear masks. And then people also don't get into other people's business. So they like their personal space. There's no touching, there's no hugging, there's no shaking hands. So it's that's sort of how it comes about. But we have started to the audience capacity started with like, maybe you can have like 100, then 200, 300. Now we're allowed to have 5,000, which at the maximum capacity is at 50%. So in a stadium of 10,000, you're allowed to have 5,000 people safely. So baseball games, stadium concerts, big outdoor music festival, at up to 5,000, it's allowed. There's some specific rules with classical music and that the government has sort of put out, which is that concerts are shorter, so there's no intermission. So all programs are within the hour or just a little bit over an hour. But the whole thing is, don't have intermission, so people don't have to make cluster in the lobby.
I mean, that alone sounds better anyway. I love a compact.
Me too.
Done in like 75 minutes, no intermission, max. Like, that's great. And
then tickets. So tickets, they've been very creative. Every concert hall is doing something differently, but on the ticket, it tells you exactly when you're allowed to enter and then how you're allowed to exit. So they do it by tiers. So people know exactly what time they can enter the concert hall and sit down, and people know how to exit the concert hall. So after the end of the concert, people don't just stand up and leave. It's in a very orderly fashion, going in and going out. And then other than that, there's also like backstage. People in the audience are not allowed backstage. And then musicians are not allowed into the lobby, just to make sure that there's no transfer, movement of viruses and all that. let's see, what else can I share? So we in Japan, we've done a lot of experiments, I would say, and I've been part of 3 different experiments so far. And some have been published in English. I'll post one right now. This is from Maestro Arts article. This is with from the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra with their music director Kazushi Ono, and this explaining how how much of a distance is it safe? Is it not safe? And then the conclusion of this paragraph is actually really interesting that I want to highlight is that the results showed much less strength and speed in aerosol from the wind instruments compared to the results from the European orchestras. And what it's saying is that based on the different tests that we have done here, it's actually not that dangerous on stage. What I thought was really interesting is on the study that I was part of, they said that it was more dangerous backstage with all the musicians chitter-chattering because they haven't seen their colleagues in like 4 months. That was more dangerous than being on stage. And then I did an experiment where we were in a room of lasers, and then we all wear glasses, and then I did a rehearsal with a wind ensemble to see what the arrows, with me talking and with everyone talking, how dangerous it is, and it wasn't dangerous. As long as the conductor was wearing a mask, it's fine. There are no shields on stage. With orchestras, people are using 1 stand per person, but some orchestras have gotten into 2 people per stand, so back to normal. It is socially distanced, like 1 meter or 90 centimeters or apart.
6 feet.
Yeah. No, right, 6 feet. Not really. But and everyone's just cautious. No one's touching anything, that's for sure. Only the stagehand is touching with gloves. Brass players who have to, do their spit valves. There's it's like a pee pad for dogs, but like it's on the ground, and that's where they're putting their.
I think some brass players like Mike Martin is here. I think I think brass players in general would benefit from having pee pads around. So,
Hi, Mike. So and then with the collection of those water absorption pads, the instrumentalists themselves are taking it and not the stagehand. So to be very safe. There are far fewer chairs backstage now, and it's planted with a tape, so you can't really move it. And if you're using a chair, you have to put your name on it. So if you've claimed a chair, no one else can really use that, just to be on the safe side. Dressing room, mirrors and chairs, also you have to put your name on it, and so that no one's sharing anything. Now, the killer part, which I think it can be a kill. It depends on which way you look at it, but because we've already sold concerts throughout the summer and the fall, and right now it's at 50% capacity. We're doing concerts twice. So 2 performances. So let's just say like 1 performance at like 11 a.m. and then another performance is at like 4 p.m. or something like that. Just so that there's enough time to clean out the air in the concert hall in between, but also to not shoo away people who have bought tickets, that they all have an opportunity to come see the concerts. Now, if people are uncomfortable, going outside and coming to the concert, which like a lot of percentage of people are still very cautious about it, which is a good thing, then they can get their tickets refunded, and every single concert is live streamed right now. So if they can get their tickets refunded, and they get a code so that they can watch the concert online. I can't think of a single concert that's not live streamed right now in Japan. So, but the live streaming is now also available for the entire country. So anyone can watch a concert. So now the benefit that came out of this COVID-19 for the concert hall is that we're now reaching far more people than ever to sort of quote unquote experience the concert. They can't really physically attend, but they're watching. So I did a concert in June. That was the first week after the pandemic, and I had 14,000 people live stream, watching live. And it's crazy, you know, that many people who have it goes beyond the capacity of the concert hall that was 2,000. And I think that's great. And then the tickets are at like $10. I think that's like the country average right now. It's $10 for the tickets to watch it live stream. And then they have an archival period, so it's like 3 or 4 weeks that they can watch it. So if they cannot watch it live, they can watch it later on within the time period.
Wow, that's just amazing. So you said there's some distancing on stage, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are the stages large enough in general to accommodate the distance that they're trying to, or is there more distance provided depending on what people play? Like there's been discussion about that, about, string players, you know, for breath and things, you know, that they're like, they can be closer together, wear masks, but, you know, put brass players further apart from each other or wind players further apart from each other. Is it kind of the same sort of approach? Like everybody try to have the same, you know, 1 meter, you know, around you, or how are they approaching that in rehearsal and on stage?
At first, I would say that they had that thought process of, you know, with brass instruments, we need further distancing. Like, you know, if you're sitting,
they just smell terrible. They just like the odor.
Right. And apart from that, well, you know, and then and then, but that was the first approach, because initially you think, okay, trumpet's facing this way or the clarinet's facing this way, there's more aerosol coming out. After the experiments, after doing so many experiments in the last few weeks, it didn't really make a difference. So they came to the conclusion that as long as people are distanced, it's not instrument specific. And the only dangerous instrument, and then I say dangerous, but it's not as dangerous. It's just that the level of aerosol, which was higher, just a bit higher than any other instruments. You want to take a guess?
I would guess flute, but I don't know if that's
piccolo. Flute was fine. Flute was in on average with the others, but yes, piccolo for sure was the only one that was sort of in the higher range. But other than that, people are just cautious. A couple things that you see that is very new is that when musicians walk on stage, they're wearing a mask. And then during long rests, like percussionists, tuba players, they're wearing a mask. Audience is always wearing a mask. They're not at the very top of the show. God of Mike is saying that bravos are not allowed. So people are now holding up signs that says bravo. So they're like shaking signs that says bravo. So, which is really funny to watch, but also like we're already at 50% capacity. So the applause is already at 50% reduced. And for them to be holding a bravo sign reduces even more applause. So I'm a little bit, you know, I love the bravo signs. It's really cute, but I'm also like, just applaud, like stomp your feet or do something.
That is amazing. Wow.
I'll show you another creative initiative right now that's happening in Japan is like a lot of the music directors of orchestras and also professional wind ensembles are foreigners, and these foreign conductors are not really able to come to Japan to do concerts right now, or else because, you know, of the 2-week quarantine and all that. So we're doing something interesting. This is at Tokyo Symphony, but where conductors are on screens at this is a real live performance. So they're conducting orchestras playing. I wonder if there's another photo. Yeah, there we go. So they you know, the conductor is on a screen, and then the orchestra is watching that screen and performing to that screen. Yeah, allowing the foreign music directors who cannot travel to Japan to still conduct concerts in Japan. And they, you know, they do a little talk, you know, this is very, and then they also this is Jonathan Knott from the Tokyo Symphony, music director. He's also making a few comments to the audience from Switzerland. And they've done,
this is amazing.
So, you know, people are, you have audience. The concert had about 1,500 people, I think, in the audience for this one. And as you can see on stage, there's about 70 people on stage.
Yeah.
And everyone's wearing a mask.
And they don't look actually like in the rows across. They don't look so distanced at all.
They don't. They don't, because we've proved that it's safe on stage. Like, we have asked the doctors to write reports, and then when players are not wearing masks, people are sharing music stands, and yeah. So there's what the stage looks like. There's I think it's about 60 plus. Yeah. So. We're progressively moving forward, and we're being very careful. Temperature checks for every audience member is a must, and then it's a must for musicians too. And anyone whose temperature is a little bit high, they get sent home no matter what. Like, even if it's a concert master, if it's a player on stage, they will get sent home without any exceptions.
So are there covers? Like, is there,
there are covers. There has been some orchestras where they have been faced with a player couldn't play because the temperature was a little bit high, so they stayed home and they had to bring in someone last minute.
Could you read the concert, basically? Is that what's happening? Is it that level?
It's not happening as much. So, like, we're talking very rare cases of that happening. So, but making sure that as each player they're responsible for themselves, and then especially responsible that they're not contaminating and getting other people sick. So if they feel like they're a little bit at a risk, then they make sure that they tell their personal manager to make sure everything's okay, and then there's a standby ready to go. String players, it's easier, right? There's more of them, but wind players, you kind of have to make that adjustment.
Well, because there are like 2 good oboe players in the world, so I don't know what happens. The oboist gets sick.
Exactly. Let's see, Mike. Of course, they're holding Bravo signs. Yes, most definitely. If I can pull up a photo of that, I will do for sure.
There was someone in the front row of that concert, like air bravoing. There was not a sign, but they were going.
Yes. So it kind of, I'm at a mixed feeling of all of this, because like my primary work is in the US, and I know how awful it is right now in the States and how much musicians are suffering from all of this. And then here I am in Japan conducting concerts weekly now, and as I feel bad about being able to do that, but also, like, if someone doesn't do it and show to the world that this is possible, then it doesn't give hope, right? So I'm taking it in an approach of like, okay, as long as we're very successful at doing this in this country, then other countries can see that wearing a mask is a viable thing. Taking precautionary measures for doing concert is an important way of bringing concerts back on stage.
Yeah.
I
live in San Francisco, and I often go running in Golden Gate Park. And a few weeks ago, there was a jazz quartet, I think, playing outside. And they were distanced, and it was the first time I had heard live music in like 4 months, I think. And it was just amazing. Like, I'm like running, and I stopped and listened and started crying just to hear live music at all. I can't imagine, what that will eventually be like here, to go into a concert hall and feel like that is a safe thing to do, hopefully. I'm envious. And, several weeks ago, you're doing this concert with my music soon. And when I saw the order, I thought, oh, they're going to cancel that order. But no, you're actually doing this concert in a couple of weeks in Japan with my music. And I thought, no way in hell. But yeah, Japan. So
we are, yes. So I put together an all John Mackey program with the Siena Wind Orchestra, but this is supposed to be on July 4th, and it got postponed, and it's now August 30th. And I was telling John how right now my desk is filled with John's music. I've got the Wine Dark Sea. I've got the. Why are all your music so heavy?
That's how we charge so much. It's got
for the paper. I even have 2 Wine Dark Seas. Anyways,
Wine Dark Seas. Thank you. I think that's how we were able to buy a house. Thank you for.
I know, I'm supporting your your house. But Sacred Spaces, would you mind sharing just a little bit about this? Because this, I think, it's going to be a Japan premiere. It might have been performed once, but
I think that it hasn't been performed a lot. It just premiered. Well, I say just. It was a year ago now. It doesn't seem. It's funny. Last July seems like so recently, and also like decades ago. But yeah, it premiered at the Texas Bandmasters Association conference last July with the Army Field Band and Jerry conducting. And yeah, they had asked for a piece, and they asked pretty late. It's like crazy horn rip that is the same as the American Overture Jenkins piece. Yeah, so they asked pretty late for a piece, and I wanted to do it because of the Army Field Band, and Jerry was going to be conducting it. But so they got this very short, very happy piece, and it was the first piece I had written after a piece. The prior large piece that I'd finished was a piece called "Places We Can No Longer Go" that I had written. My mother had dementia, and I wrote a piece about her battle with dementia and her loss of memory and her faculties. And that piece was awful to write, just completely literally put me in therapy, that piece. And so after that, I didn't write anything for a while. And then when I wrote something else, it was this piece. And I just wanted to write something completely just brief and joyful and, celebratory. And so it was going to be done at, some of regional CBDNAs here in the United States, but then those didn't happen. So, it's wild. It's like, all of life was just put on pause, including, all concerts and, the life of, pieces too, like that piece is just kind of frozen in time right now, like everybody's music that they've written. It's all, it's done. No one can play it except apparently you. So, so I'm really grateful that you're doing it. But yeah, it's just like a short, joyful piece that I'm really proud of that one, but it's kind of.
It's a great score. And what a, it can be an opener, it can be an encore, it can be a closer. It just works anywhere in the program, which is fantastic.
Where you put? Is it opening or where did you put it?
It's opening. Yeah, for me it was my original program of the all John Mackey program was much longer, but now we have this rule of making the concert shorter. So I had to take out some pieces and Sacred Spaces was not at the very top at the original program, but I wanted to make sure I performed this piece, so I put it at the top for this alternate scheduling of this programming.
Great. Yeah. I'm. Thank you for. I wish I could be there, but I guess maybe I can watch the webcast.
Actually, no. I'll send you a link.
Let me send me a little code so I can do that.
yes, for sure. And with all of my guests that I've had on music today, I always touch upon two current affairs, and one is Black Lives Matter and how it influences you and also your musical activities. Would you share a little bit about this movement? And
sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's incredibly critical what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement here in the United States and internationally. I think, for me personally, it's something that I don't really know how to articulate this because I don't really generally do it. And I'm not articulate anyway. So when I was a kid, I was really I was poor, really poor, like food stamps poor. And now I'm fine. And a lot of that is because I'm white. And it took me a long time to realize that the privilege that comes along with being white in America in particular, I think is a really powerful thing. And I kind of just took it for granted as oh no, I'm just working hard and, writing good tunes or whatever. And I wasn't working that hard and the tunes weren't even that good, but there's a lot that goes along with, just, white dudes. So, at some point a couple of years ago, I realized that I was fortunate to be in a position because I am a white male and also had become very successful that I could use that to hopefully help composers who don't look like me, really, the thinking. and trying to find ways to, use my privilege to support composers who don't have that, jump start at things. And the way I personally approached it was, the initial thing that I did was at the Midwest Clinic, there's a rule that if you're self-published composer, or if you're any composer, a piece played, your publisher, a certain number of pieces, you have to buy an ad in the program. And when you get to like 3 performances at Midwest in a given year, then you have to like pay for an exhibit booth.
I see.
Very expensive. And I did not want a booth. And I was like, that's dumb. I want to like go to concerts and go to rehearsals and,
Right.
drink or whatever. I don't want to like, work at a booth all day.
Right.
I got a lot of credit for what ended up happening, but it's not credit that I should have received, I don't think, honestly. What happened was, so I had to get this booth and I was just going to leave the thing empty. Or worse, I was so like annoyed that I had to pay for this booth because I had too many performances, and I wanted to like put a garbage can, just put paper in it, set fire to it, and be like, screw you, Midwest Clinic. But instead of doing that, my wife said, if someone gives you something that you don't need, that someone else may need, why don't you give it to someone who needs it rather than just throwing it away? And so what we decided to do was to still get the booth and fund the whole thing and furnish it and all of that, but then just turn it over completely to composers from underrepresented groups. So people of color, composers who identify as women. And it was a really incredible experience. I think more so for me, honestly, than anybody who has exhibited at the booth. And we've had, I guess, 8 to 10 people every year for the past 3 years. So we've done it 3 years now. And of course, Midwest is not happening this year, but it's been, I think I'm more proud of that. That sounds kind of silly maybe, but I think I'm more proud of what that is than even, the music stuff that I do in a way. Because it was just something that people needed that, people just needed a little jump start. Composers who couldn't afford that booth, just getting started or whatever. And I think it's helped a lot of people in a good way. And so I'm really proud of that. But
that's wonderful. It's super wonderful. Do you do some like mentorship throughout the year?
Throughout the year, I mean, I definitely, I don't. I think in connection with the booth, a lot of composers who, are not white, males, know that I, try to support them. And so I do what I can to champion pieces. If there's a piece by a composer, that's not a white dude, that I see that I think people should know about, I work hard to, get that score in the hands of conductors who might not, look at it otherwise, if it's just like blindly, emailed or whatever. So I do my best to do that as well.
That's super important because I'm on the receiving end of that, right? Where I get a lot of composers, too many LinkedIn connections that I just never look at, right? But when it's championed by other conductors or other composers saying, "Hey, Kate, really take a look at this piece. It's really good," then it really puts those composers in a different category where I try to really think about programming. And the great thing about, I've been doing this music today for about 2-3 months now, I'm learning so much more about composers that I've never known from the composers that have been on the show. And through them, my list of composers that I would love to perform once performing is allowed. It's unbelievable. I've never heard many of these composers, and they write such great music.
Yeah, and what's really exciting for me is when I hear stuff that I'm like, that sounds like nobody else. Like that is, like Omar Thomas's music is just legitimately brilliant, completely unique. His is a voice that everybody should hear. No matter what his background, that is just spectacular music. There's just a real, I think, a value to any composer that, I mean, my wife and I've talked about this quite a bit too, because she works in philosophy, and in the lines of work where like the original person who did that work is the lone genius, philosophers or composers or painters or whatever, where they lock themselves up in some room and just think about stuff. It's all of those jobs are just historically white dudes, and that's a pretty limited way of coming at what these things can be. So I think it makes everyone's music better, to hear, different sounds and
most definitely.
So and a lot of music, sounds the same in the concert hall. You can tell based on what even with band music, you can tell like what 5-year period a piece was written in. Generally, I think, and I think that gets a lot harder once we add just more voices that are coming at it from just more exciting, interesting backgrounds than white dude. So.
Most definitely. The other social current affair that I always touch upon is COVID-19, and we've already talked a little bit with the Creative Repertoire Initiative, but how doing concerts has been such a routine activity for us. We've never really had to think about not having an audience, and we've of course, there are a lot of efforts into making sure that there is an audience for every concert and behind the scenes. But there were always, what defines us as performers is the fact that there are people who are able to appreciate our work. But then all of a sudden, with this world crisis, we're not allowed to perform in public, and having an audience, being on stage with our colleagues is becoming extremely difficult. So my question to you is, how has your attitude towards music and performing for an audience changed over the last few months?
Well, I mean, I touched on it a little bit just in that how dark things felt to me. Right. Especially in the first month of this, where it just felt like I didn't have an identity anymore. If I couldn't not just write the music, but I have to I don't write music for me. Like I don't listen to my own music. I don't think it's all that interesting. I know what that sounds like. So. What's fun for me is, the experience of rehearsing the piece and, attending a performance of the piece and interacting with the players and the conductor and the audience after. That's why I enjoy doing it. And so to take that away, made it feel like, what am I doing at all? But I think I hadn't really realized how, I was essentially taking that for granted, that, fortunate that I can, travel for performances. Like, well, I figured I would always get to travel for performances of my music, and I would just, if I didn't feel like going, I just wouldn't go. But now, like, I want to go all the time. Like, I really miss it terribly. I think that's what I miss the most of what's happening. I miss the restaurants in San Francisco, but even much more than that, I miss interacting with players in person. And people send me, people use some of my pieces for the where each student will record one part and they send it all, to one person, and they, edit it all together and do, like a virtual choir band thing or whatever. Right. And those are cool, but like, it's just there's nothing like being in the room, when that happens.
Exactly.
And I appreciated it before, but not like this. Like now I just am so acutely aware of what's missing and really want that back.
Most definitely. I found a quick video that sort of shows how audience are entering, and with the temperature checks and stuff. It's just a quick thing, but it kind of describes what's going on in the concert halls. So I'm just doing it without sound. So this is like the entrance of there's temperature are taken electronically to making sure, and the people are all wearing masks, and there is the Bravo sign that people are mentioning. I was saying, I think it's somewhere around here. Let's see. There should be some Bravo sign somewhere coming about. There we go. Yeah. Bravos. So you see more of that. But audience members are, 1 seat apart. And then it was quick, so you might not have been able to catch it, but like on stage, even the string players and the conductors are not wearing masks.
Right.
Well, because you're not talking, so I wouldn't say there's no need to. People people have the option to not wear, but most people are not wearing it because it's just really uncomfortable to wear it and perform.
So you say they have the option. So is there any sort of shaming of any kind if someone opts not to wear a mask and they're sitting next to someone who is wearing a mask on stage?
Not at all. This is a complete personal choice, so there is no shaming whatsoever. Like I did a concert 2 weeks ago where the orchestra said, "You don't have to wear a mask," but I said, "I'm going to wear a mask." I conducted with a mask on, just for my own safety and their safety, and no one questioned that. They're like, "That's okay." Like. And then there were people on stage who wore masks while they performed, and some people didn't. It's a personal choice. It's just what is your comfort level. More of, yeah. No one's forcing you to not wear a mask. That's for sure. Like 99% of the time in rehearsal, moving, going from different places to places, people are wearing masks. The reason why the music has started back up, especially in Japan, is because there was a little bit of a disconnect with society when the emergency was lifted. Everyone was working remotely. Then all of a sudden the emergency was lifted. Then all of a sudden in Japan we're having trains that are like packed with people. And so if packed trains are fine, why aren't concerts fine? And that's when orchestras and administrators and wind ensemble admins and musicians step forward and be like, government, this is ridiculous. Like, how can you allow trains and not allow concerts? And concerts, no one's talking. Like it seems far less dangerous than being on a train with hundreds of other people.
On the train, 100% of the people are wearing masks, though, right? Like,
yeah, you're not allowed to go on a train without a mask on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is the, I think, critical difference. Here is that it's it's up to them. Thing you're talking about in rehearsal, is unfortunately the deal in most of the United States right now, and that's it's up to them all the time, and so that's where we get problems. So.
I'm hoping that when I see the media and read the news or watch the TV from the US and I see people not wearing masks, it scares me. It's like we can't move forward if the leaders and if people are not forcing this. And the thing about Japan is like there's no fine for not wearing masks, but if you're walking in public without a mask, you're going to get looked at. Like there's people will judge you immediately. And when you're walking, they will walk around you 100%. Like, so there's that little bit of a public shaming, like that happens without anything spoken and without anything enforced. I think once people start to enforce, like there's a fine for not wearing masks, then it doesn't work in this culture.
Right. Well, I mean, in my time in Japan, I mean, just the culture is completely different in so many ways. Even like I remember the first time we were on a bus to the airport from the hotel, and there's a sign scrolling, in English, right. Please do not speak on your cell phone because it will bother your neighbor. Like you don't even talk on there was basically the buses were silent. I remember walking down busy streets in Tokyo, and it would be silent. You wouldn't hear car horns, and you would hear just no noise at all. It was amazing, and I just remember how jarring it was when I got to the airport in Tokyo and went into the American Airlines, Admirals Club, and now you're just surrounded by Americans, and it's just deafening. Like this wall of sound. It feels like after spending a week in basically silent Tokyo.
I think it's just about a respect of each person's personal space. And we don't have that much personal space in Japan. That's the other thing. You have millions of people in a tiny, tiny island, right? And so we're very cautious about that. Well, of course, we're so used to it. But at the same time, we know that we don't want to bother other people. We just totally focus on our own business and go with our lives. There's pros and cons to that. And then there's because of the sort of the exclusivity and the idleness of that is something that didn't fit me personally, hence why I left Japan and went to the States to be all lovey-dovey and huggy, and like that environment really nourished my musical activities and as a person. But so there's pros and cons to every culture, and I love both of them, right? Naturally I just take the good parts. Well, anyways, John, thank you so much for sharing your music and then having this discussion, and for an opportunity for me to share what's going on in Japan by as things progress. And if there's other things that you want to share and new music that you compose from this initiative, just let me know, and I'm happy to have you on the show again.
Thank you. This was really, really nice, and it's wonderful to hear something hopeful about what's happening anywhere in the world with music right now. So
yes, most definitely.
I appreciate that one, and I hope your concert goes great. Please do send me. What time will that be in California?
I'll send you. There's no link yet, but once
Great.
I have more information, I'll post it on my Facebook. I'll have you post it on your your social media, so people can, if there's an opportunity to watch, then people are allowed to watch.
That would be amazing. Yeah, great. Thank you so much, and thank you again for everything.
Of course. Thanks, John. And for those who are watching, thank you so much. And then come join us again sometime soon, every 9 p.m. I think the next show's on Tuesday. So, all right. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。